Hello, Shoyan here. I'm a carpenter based in Japan. Today, I'm building a door and window jamb extensions and the walls. While I can't insulate the entire wall, I'll install as much insulation as possible. One of the most challenging parts of a renovation is to frame the walls. Floors and ceilings can be leveled by dismantling and rebuilding them. However, with walls, the structural frame remains in place. It may sound simple to frame a wall plumb and horizontally, but screwing even a single furring strip can be difficult without a reference because the columns are uneven. Even if you measure the area to frame, it won't easily be parallel to the building. That's where the laser level comes in. By placing the laser in the middle, you get a perfect vertical line in all directions. This wasn't possible in the past, but now, with the laser, the invisible beam flies and projects the line onto the surroundings. By aligning a ruler to the line, you can measure precisely. While wall installation remains challenging, I can now work much faster thanks to this tool. As you can see, old buildings often had no studs in the walls. To maintain the wall strength, we used 21 mm thick furring strips horizontally on these columns spaced 90 cm apart. I'll be using this size of furring strips. First, I install the furring strip supports, placing them 45 cm from the columns. If the space is wide, I use nobuchi. If it's narrow, I use furring strips vertically instead of studs. Since I'll be installing fiberglass insulation, this framing method makes the installation easier. Once the framing is complete, the wall can be finished like a new construction, so I put a lot of focus and effort into the wall framing. Now that I've finished framing the wall, I can measure the area and size of the window jamb extensions. Although it's possible to measure beforehand, I prefer to frame the wall first. Then, I measure the distance from the wall frame to the window frame and make the window jamb extensions to fit. This approach makes the most sense. I use dark-colored, straight-grain cedar wood for the window jamb extensions. It's less likely to warp compared to cross-grain wood. Straight-grain wood is less prone to warping because it has an even number of growth rings on both sides, which causes it to expand and contract uniformly, resulting in less warping. This wood is easy to work with. In renovations, jamb extensions are typically wider compared to new construction. This is because the wall frame is thickened to correct the unevenness of the building. As a result, it's inevitable that the jamb extensions will be wider. Since the columns are tilted, the jamb extension didn't fit properly with this sliding glass door. When about 3 to 4 millimeters of thickness needs to be removed, I use an electric planer. The electric planer can remove up to 6 millimeters of thickness in one go. It's also useful for rabbeting, which involves cutting a groove along the edge of a piece of wood. I assemble the jamb extensions using about 4 90mm screws. Although there's no issue with assembling, longer screws prevent loosening during transport. I use butt joints for the jamb extensions. the ends are simply cut and joined. I cut two pieces of wood together. In the past, most of the window jamb extensions used miter joints. However, butt joints look much better after 1 or 2 years, and the inner side is chamfered to prevent gaps. They are also easier to screw together from both sides, and there's no need for mitering. I think this joint will be most beautifully finished. I insulate the walls using two thicknesses of fiberglass, 50 mm and 100 mm. Since the wall frame is thick, I use 100 mm thick fiberglass. When you open the package, the fiberglass is about 50 mm thick, but it expands to 100 mm after a few hours. So, it's best to install it quickly while it's still thin. It will naturally expand and fit neatly into spaces designed for 50 mm and 100 mm. Insulation is rarely installed on mud-plastered walls. Mud plaster has insulating properties and regulates moisture throughout the house. However, it's not very effective when fireproofing boards and vinyl membranes are installed. But I believe that sealing gaps in mud plaster walls and adding insulation will make a significant difference. Next, I built the jamb extensions for the eat-in kitchen door. The original door frame had a grooved finish and narrow wooden trim was used around it. I have only removed the trim, but the original frame remains. This time, the panel door will be replaced with a single sliding door. I make a 3-meter long header for 2 sliding doors. It also works as a trim. It will protrude from the wall and the hanging sliding door will be installed. It's a simple structure where the jambs and header are mounted on the existing frame on 3 sides. One header is used for 2 doors. The room had sunk, but this side remained almost level. If it were uneven on the right and left, I wouldn't be able to reuse the existing door frame as I am doing this time. After installing the header for the 2 doors, I believe this will make access much easier. To build the door jamb extensions, I first installed the mullion onto the thick structural pillar extending to the ceiling. Since this place was originally 2 different rooms, I'm installing trim to frame the junction between the Japanese-style room and the eat-in kitchen. When installing a wood plumb on an old column like this, it's better to install it as is without rabbeting or other processing. It will be neatly plumb. It's been a while since I last used it, but I'd like to use urethane glue this time. This glue sticks well, but if you leave it for half a year, it resembles a fossil in a stalactite cave, like earwax or boogers. This is one drawback that makes it difficult to use. After installing the jamb on the right side, I install the header. Since there will be a handle on the sliding door, it won't open fully and the side with the handle will protrude. This makes the entry narrower, but it's necessary in order to accommodate the handle. It's difficult to measure this part accurately, so I will first attach the jamb, measure the actual size, and then cut the groove. This is the best approach. Since the sliding door will be hung, a track will be in the groove which should be 21 millimeters deep. Cutting the groove to this depth in one go can cause the edges to split due to stress. To prevent this, I first make a shallow 3 millimeter groove and then deepen it to 21 millimeters. This method avoids splitting. It's a bit more work, but it's worth grooving twice for a neat finish. I end the groove at the full width of the sliding door. When the door is opened, the groove will act as the only stop. Although special floor door stopper hardware is available, I'd like to use only the end of the groove as a stopper for this door. When installing jambs or trims to a frame, small grooves make it much easier to secure them. They can be secured without needing to hold them in place. We used to make grooves frequently, but now they are rare. This is partly due to changes in wall finishes, such as hanging wallpaper or plastering the inner side of the jamb extension. I remember the days when we used to cut each groove by hand. Now that the custom-shaped jamb extensions are installed, I'll move on to installing the wall. This time, I use a material called M-cloth for most of the kitchen walls. Since the floor cabinets and overhead cabinets will be installed at the corner, M-cloth will also serve as a backing wall. This M-cloth consists of a fireproof board sheet attached to a softwood veneer layer. This board ensures that glue, paint, or plaster is applied evenly and prevents lye from coming out. It's similar to a fireproof board finish, which is quite useful. It's not as hard as plywood and doesn't hold screws as well, but it's still a useful material. I finished installing the door and window jamb extensions and the wall. Some are not completed yet, but the kitchen cabinets can now be installed. I'll work on the remaining walls later. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.